Hello everybody, and welcome to this week's Spinal Workshop. We're talking about something that we do every single day. We're talking about sleep and how to maximize that. Before we begin and jump into it, please like and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video if you find something interesting, if you learned anything on this week's topic, talking all about sleep. So, I always want to start off with understanding some of the biological processes that go into sleep. Because a lot of times our sleep doesn't just start when we go to bed. It actually is a little bit of a picture of how we spent our day prior. So one of the things, especially when talking about sleep, is one of the things we get into is something called the circadian rhythm. Now, you may have heard of that before, but let's break down what that actually is. So, our circadian rhythm is a 24-hour cycle of how our internal clock responds to light changes in our environment that either stimulate activity or stimulate relax, right? Either we're alert or it's time to go to bed. So, this is very common with humans in terms of most people sleep at night, while some people are awake during the day. That makes sense. So typically you'll notice, especially as we get into winter time here in the Midwest, of earlier in the day start getting a little bit more drowsy once that sun goes down and we wake up when the sun comes up. Makes a lot of sense. But what are some of the things that impact that? How do we gain the most maximized performance out of that? So, some little bit notes. Typically that's developed within the first 4 months of life. Obviously, we don't really have a day-night cycle when we are developing in mom's womb. So, as that develops, we're out in the world, it takes a few months. A lot of times baby doesn't sleep through the night because they don't understand. Their brain isn't processing. We're awake in the day and sleeping at night. So it usually takes about the first 4 months for us to develop that circadian rhythm. And what is one of the most important parts of that circadian rhythm? I've been talking about it, beating around the bush with that. It's all about light. Specifically, I want to talk about sunlight. So, one of the more important things for us to do to improve our sleep is to see the sun. We got to go outside. It's even better if you can get that sun to skin exposure. Your body processes, I'm in the sun, without us even realizing it. It's a subconscious effect that tells us it's daytime right now. And that even comes from the lights around us. Inversely, when it gets dark and gloomy, it may be a little bit quicker to take a nap. I referenced it earlier. You may be wanting to fall asleep a whole lot earlier in the day, opposed to in the summertime, where you may not get tired till 9, 10 o'clock. In the winter, hits 5:30 and you're already thinking about bed. So, that is one of the biggest things that help set our internal alarm. On the inverse side of it, one of the things that disrupts sleep so much is when we trick our brains with blue light. So, falling asleep to the TV, everyone's on their phones for the 15 minutes before going to bed, and maybe you're not sleeping or falling asleep as fast. Well, that's part of the problem with that, is we gotta put the phones away. Turn off the screen time before bed, because that artificial light is telling our brain it's daytime now. We already went through that dark phases when we started falling asleep, and then all of a sudden we wake back up, and that's part of the problem with that. So, to better understand sleep and how to do this, obviously some people know there's a lot of sleep cycles with that. So, typically it breaks down, again, depending on who you ask and how we want to divide up the sleep cycles. But I just want to talk about three cycles here. Light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. REM sleep is the one that most people hear about and talk about. mostly because it's one of the more important, it's one of the longer phases that we can be in throughout the night, and it's typically where most of our vivid dreams happen. Although dreams can happen through any of the stages, that is when we typically have the most memorable ones. But light sleep usually takes about 10-25 minutes. Again, it'll vary throughout the night. It'll vary on your age, a lot of different things going with that. Deep sleep, 20 to 40 minutes. REM sleep, anywhere from 10 to an hour. So we go through those phases as we go through our night. So light sleep, we're just into that falling asleep phase. Our temperature drops with our body. Breathing and heart rate slows, muscles relax. It's that soothing part of we just fell asleep and here we are. We get more into that deep sleep cycle. So again, as we work through those phases, that is where our recovery, either from the day, maybe a workout, maybe get some muscle repair throughout the damage, what we did throughout the day. It's also where we hit our growth phase. So especially kids, as they're growing, the most growth will happen during that deep sleep. It's also beneficial for our immune system. A lot of that recovery kind of goes along, same hand in hand with that, allows our immune system to catch up with building up antibodies and helps strengthen that. We get more into REM sleep. Obviously, REM sleep stands for rapid eye movement. That is where you have the increased brain activity, and I already mentioned about the vivid dreams with that. So 25% of our night is spent in this phase of sleep. That is where we have the rapid eye movement, and the muscles for breathing are the ones that only really stay active. Everything else is pretty much a temporary paralysis through that point. Again, each one of these sleep cycles are very important to having a restful morning and going throughout your day with maximum energy. Now, one of the things is if you are not getting the sufficient sleep, again, sleep quality decreases, it probably means that one of the cycles is probably being missed. Most likely not getting enough REM sleep. So if we're waking up quite frequently throughout the night, we may never hit that REM sleep where we do so much of our brain healing throughout the night and get that restful motion as our body fully relaxes. So if that is something where you still feel tired in the morning, it may be something of I'm waking up too often or never sufficiently spending enough time in that REM sleep where my body can fully relax at its maximum. So if we're waking up a lot, that is something that we want to look at with the circadian rhythm. Is it something I'm doing hours earlier? If you're doing it much earlier in the day, that may impact, I'm not getting the REM sleep at night because I did not spend enough time out in the sun the day prior. I know in the Midwest here in the winter, it gets a lot more difficult, but even if you are inside, open up the curtains. Let's see outside, let's see the sun. Even though it's cold out there and we're gonna wear our clothes to stay warm, the more you're seeing the sun actually will impact your sleep later on that night. So, kind of shifting gears here and talking about the phases of sleep, one of the things that I get quite often in the office is, well, you know, my neck is sore because I slept wrong. I feel like I slept wrong. And typically what that's referring to is the sleeping positions there. So I get asked, well, what's the correct sleeping position? So the biggest thing in concepts to grasp when talking about a sleeping position is the same sort of concept that goes throughout our day as well, is as much as I need to keep a neutral spine as possible. We talk about this more with a forward head posture throughout the day. If my head creeps out further forward, it's going to put more strain on my body, and as that head creeps forward, my hips and low back and everything else is going to be diminished with that as well. So I want you to take that concept and now bring it to when you're going to bed. So what patients usually have that usually results in some of the problems is maybe the head is shifted much more forward while they're sleeping, and it typically requires them to hunch elsewhere. That spine is no longer in a neutral position while they're sleeping, hopefully for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. To further grasp this concept, the best sleeping position is typically reserved for sleeping directly on the back. Keeps that spine remotely neutral. It usually has a more uniform posture with that. Now, that being said, you've got to keep an eye on how far the head is going. If they have a really thick pillow or a lot of pillows, it's going to push that head more and more forward, and that's going to cause some discomfort potentially come morning. Side sleeping, it's okay. It's typically not as good as sleeping on your back, but there are some advantages to that. The biggest things that I want patients to do, and you guys as well, is making sure that I just taking a quick inventory. If my head is leaning to the side, one way or the other, how are my hips aligned while I'm sleeping on my side? You gotta just pay attention to that. Be wary of that. I want to keep a neutral spine as possible. The least desired sleeping position is the one that remains on the stomach. So it is one of those conversations that I always hear, well, I love sleeping on my stomach, but I'm having neck pain in the morning. Yeah. So I want you to do this drill. If you are unconvinced about how poor a side sleeping position is, if you were to just turn your head and stay here for 15 minutes and then try to turn your head back to the other side, might be a little bit more stiff because those muscles have to respond to that position, and it's going to hold that contraction, and you may not be able to go the other way as easily come morning. So that is the biggest apprehension with the stomach sleeper, is it has so much rotation and so much twist anywhere throughout the body to make that feasible that it becomes difficult and the price is paid later on in the day. The next question I usually get besides sleeping positions is, well, type of mattress, type of pillow, all of those type of questions, again, externally. And that's absolutely going to play a role as well. Typically what I find is a softer mattress, one, usually wears out a little bit quicker because that support is not there. But the worst problem with that is it's not going to support a good position. It's more prone to supporting a poor posture while you're in that softer, more fluffier sort of state in terms of that support there. Think of a beanbag chair. It's real soft. It's fluffy. I know I might be dating myself on the beanbag chair reference, but you think you sink right in there. And that's sort of the concept to a lesser degree when you have a softer mattress, is you sink in. Now you're surrounded, mattress is giving you a little hug, but again, that posture is not able to be held and supported. On the flip side, typically that firmer mattress usually works out much better because it is more likely to keep that spine very neutral instead of sinking in. Same thing goes with a pillow. Like I kind of discussed earlier, we don't want that head to be pushed far forward in front of the shoulders. The more that spine can stay in line over top of the shoulders, the better that will be. I still want you to support your head, but just in more of a lesser degree so it's not being driven so far forward. So, hope what you found in today's video very helpful. I know that sleep is a big problem for many people. There are always different ways to help improve our sleep as we live in today's society. One of the other things that usually can impact sleep quite a bit is if you have a central nervous system that is fired up and turned on all the time. That does not allow that body to reach that sleep state, able to relax. One of the ways that we control that central nervous system is what we do in our office with your chiropractor. It's getting adjusted. Helps that body regulate itself to the state where it can have that balance where it's time to be awake, it's time to go to sleep and recover. So, if you found anything interesting, found anything helpful, beneficial, hope you can get some rest off of the information that you learned from this video. But like I said, like the video if you enjoyed, share it to someone else so they can also get a nice sleep and have a great rest of your day.